All right, guys, welcome back to the Unacceptable News. I'm your host, Justin Bush, and I'm going to show you how to make more basil plants. So, propagating basil. I also propagate plants like this. This is our sweet potatoes. There's a little bit of tomato in there. But here's some pepper plants. Now, I plant multiple plants together, so that way it deals with it has a lot to do with pests, different pests and things like that. Now you can propagate sweet potatoes. In fact, you can see this little guy sticking up right here. This is a propagation of a sweet potato, and this is a propagation of a sweet potato. You can see the new growth here. Now today we're going to propagate some basil. So all we're going to do is come in, and you'll see the basil plant has nodes. I'm sorry, the cat is all over me. I've been sick, so I haven't been playing with the cat. And you can see these nodes. Let's just clip this off down fairly low. I don't want to clip that one. Let me see, I'm going to clip this one right here. All right, now we see these nodes. Okay, let's walk over here. I'm going to just show you what to do. Now, with these nodes on these basil plants, we'll get in here. At each one of these little separations is where most of your roots will come from. So if you want to make a new plant out of this, what we'll do is we'll clip off all these leaves down to the bottom, off of the sides of the nodes, and we'll leave a cluster of them right at the top, and you'll see what that looks like. So we clip them all, and that's pretty good. A little cluster at the top. Make sure you have at least 2 or 3 nodes. Usually helps. All right, and we stick this in water. Now you stick it in water, stick it in a nice sunny place outside. Here's a nice mason glass of water, a mason jar of water, and then after a little while, when you pull them out, you will have a nice cluster of roots. Now this could stay in there technically, 2 more days. It's probably been in there for 4 days, and it's got these level of roots, but these level of roots are good enough to create a new plant. So you'll come over here to your dirt. Let me grab a utensil. We'll come over here to this window box, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna break open the dirt, nice and fluffy. We actually have a basil. It looks like a little basil seedling coming up right next to where I just planted. I pulled it up by accident. You can actually see it right there. It's just a little basil seed. Now I planted hundreds of basil seeds this year, and most of them didn't come up. I'm not exactly sure why, so I started propagating from other basil plants that I had for this very reason. But now that I started propagating, we can see, like right there, a few of these little basil plants coming up, which is ironic because I had worked so hard to grow these seeds, and for months they didn't come up. But anyway, we're going to put this in here, this basil, all the way down. Make sure your roots get covered, and then we will compact our soil around it, just like that. And then the last but not least, we're going to need to water this. Now, you don't want to overwater, but you do want to make sure that this is moist, especially over the next 3 or 4 days. Once those roots start taking nutrients from the soil, it should grow fairly quickly. So I'm just pouring just a little bit of water on it. It doesn't need to be much. And I've already done this with several others. So we already have, this basil plant looks very sick. It hasn't done great, but we've already propagated a few. That was the one from the tray. Now somebody said they wanted an update on my strawberries that I tried to plant. There's another basil plant, and you can see all the seeds finally coming up, the basil seeds. Got tons of them finally coming up, which is a pain because I worked so hard and none of them came up for months, and now they're finally coming up in the middle of the summer, really late in the season, which is fine. Same thing with a lot of my mustard seeds. You see how dill. My dill plants did really bad this year, but we have some more seeds coming up. So this whole box should have been dill, and we've got these very, very small. They did really terrible. This dill did not that good, but there is hope. We have our first honeydew. This is the first honeydew I've ever grown. I don't know why, but in terms of pests, I have had no luck with honeydew at all for any reason. Every year the pests get to it and absolutely destroy my honeydew. But anyway, you can see here, this is where, so what happened was this got too wet. It's close to this side, and when it rains, you can see up here, it leaks. And this whole thing got submerged in water. In fact, you can see that's not from me watering, that's just from the rain, and it killed off these strawberry vines that I planted on the other video, and you can see that they just completely rotted away. So somebody asked for an update on that, and it did not do well. Here's the other one. Now you can see it did well at first. In fact, you can see a little bit of life in there. I don't know if you can see it. This one's still trying really hard. There we go. So it's trying. That's a bud right there. This strawberry is trying really hard to grow. But I think it just got way too wet. I think this soil is just way too moist, so the strawberry plant probably will not come up. But you know, I'll put it back in there. It's trying. It does have some new growth on it. Very teeny tiny little leaves coming up, but I'll put it back and maybe it'll come up, maybe it won't. And the same thing happened with some other strawberry plants I had on the other side. So I'll show you that. Mine as well. So you can see that some of them came up, right? They're fighting for it. These are a little bit drier, so these did not have the problem that the other side did. But you can see there's one right there that's still growing. So that's still green, but you can see like up here, this one died off. So this one probably, yeah, look at that. That guy didn't make it. And this happens, and the reason that you do this, and you don't have to do this, nobody has to follow my instructions, but the reason I do this is because when you have like this strawberry plant, he is surviving. It looks like he's dead. He had a few leaves die off, but you can see once again in there, the camera's not very good at this, but you can see that new growth coming out right there, and in between that little bud, it's a new pack of leaves that'll come out from this strawberry plant. And so the reason that I do this is because when the plants put out their shoots, they put a lot of energy, a whole bunch of energy into creating a new plant from the mother plant. Oh, by the way, we have a few cantaloupes here. See that? I just pollinated that one this morning. And there's another one right back there. You can see that one. It's not quite open yet. So that one will get pollinated. Oh no, it might have already opened. Hopefully the bees pollinated it. But so we have a few, I'm getting sidetracked, but we've got some good growth in our garden. These are the last plants that I have to plant. Here, oh, let me show you something else. So these guys that I transplanted, so you can see this brand new leaf right here in my hand. You can see that right there, beautiful. And then over here, these are the ones I transplanted the other day, and a lot of people say, well, you know, nothing really happened. Actually, you can see that new growth right there, if you can see it there. So leaves are coming out of this one. There was another one. Yep, here, right here. Leaves are coming out of that one. I don't know if you remember what they look like. In fact, there are some yellow leaves on them still. And you can just see the difference between how yellow these old leaves were and the newer leaves that are coming up are already a darker green than the older leaves. That's just because they weren't getting either enough nutrients or enough sunlight. I assume it's sunlight from the corner where we moved them from. So, and we've got all sorts of stuff going on over here. But today, the last thing I have to do for planting this season is to put out, these are going to be late season squash plants, various late season squash plants. You can see them all. We've got to put these in the main garden. And we can see we've got some oregano that is seeding right here. So we're going to get some oregano seeds for next year. And we could trim this. I might trim some of these smaller ones and dry them. But we'll leave a lot of these for seed because I'm out of oregano seed right now. So might as well let some of them go to seed. And over here we can actually see a pollinator, a native pollinator right there. You can see that little guy. I wish it would focus. Come on, focus. You can see him. He's kind of like a little wasp species. You can see him on the flower there. Now this is all cilantro, and I allow this to seed. And you can see we've got some newer seeds coming up. I love cilantro seed. You can either replant it or you can use it as a spice for pickling, which the pickles inside the house right now I showed you earlier are literally growing from cilantro seed, or excuse me, the pickles are being made from cilantro seed, as well as dill seed, as well as mustard seed. So if you can grow the seed that you're using for pickling and making tacos, and you know, we use cilantro for salsa. We've got pepper plants this year that already have a bunch of beautiful little peppers growing on them. So if you can make peppers, and you can make, you know, cilantro, and you can make your own salsa, and you can grow tomatoes and tomatillos. In fact, here's some tomatoes. We might as well make this the video because I don't know if you hear me sniffing, but I'm not feeling good. You know, if you can grow tomatoes, and you can grow peppers, and you can grow cilantro, and you can grow, you know, cilantro seed and things like that. Oh, there's a mushroom. See it? That'll tell you if you got some good soil or not. If you've got some mushroom growth in your mulch and things like that, how much nutrients are there, because mushrooms require that nutrient. So if you see large mushroom growth, a lot of times it's an indicator of a high nutrient area where the mushrooms have the availability of nutrients to survive. Oh, you know what? We might as well talk about these strawberries. So this is what a strawberry plant looks like when it's seedling. So you can see it first grows like this, 2 little leaves. That one's not very good. This one's better right here. So you see how small they are? Teeny tiny. You can actually see, if you see these little dots here, these are strawberry seed that have not opened up yet. There are a few of them. So I dry out strawberries from my garden, and then I plant seeds, and these will go inside in the winter, most likely. It depends on how well they grow, but most likely these 2 trays will go inside in the winter. Have a nice grow light that'll sit above them, and next year these will get planted in the garden when they get bigger. But they grow the 2 first leaves, and then they grow this silly little side leaf. They look really stupid. You know, here, that's a better look. This one actually might not be strawberry. I think it is, but we'll find out in a little bit. But this one definitely is. I know that much. So it grows the 2 main leaves, and then it grows this silly little 3rd leaf, and then it'll grow up, and then it'll split, and the leaves will get more complex as it gets older. This is I'm 99% sure that this isn't a real strawberry plant. I think this is a native look-alike, and I found it in the backyard. It was very small, and I just wanted to see what it would look like when it grew up, because you can tell by the leaves and whether or not it is a strawberry plant or whether it's a native look-alike. And I believe this is a a native look-alike, but it grows very similarly and looks very similarly to the strawberries that we would eat. So don't pay attention to that one. But if you want to see some more strawberry seeds, there's a few right here. They're growing everywhere. You can see how many there are. You know, I dry them out. I'll show you some here. I'll show you what I do. So right over here is blackberries, right? So these are all blackberries of various stages. If birds get to them, or if they have some dry spots, like this one's got some dead spots on the side, it's not something you want to eat. So I just leave them here and let them dry. Sometimes the ants will come over and eat them a little bit, but when they do, what ends up happening is this, and you get all these seeds, right? And you know, you can plant those out and get beautiful raspberries like this. You can see all the new growth in this raspberry plant right here, and you'll get hundreds and hundreds of beautiful blackberries if my phone would, you know. So you get hundreds of blackberries. You make blackberry jam, and then all you do is save a seed, right? And from this one berry, which you're always going to have some that drop off, some that birds eat, some, in fact, I'll show you one right now here. So this one probably got broken off by accident. You know, the seeds in it probably aren't great because it's still red. They probably haven't matured all the way. But sometimes when they drop off, I know for a fact there was a black one that fell off the other day. I saw it on the ground. Well, there was one over here. It's probably over here somewhere. But anyway, you know, when you have a berry fall off, or they get attacked, or half eaten by ants or whatever, you just take them and use them as seed for next year. And then you can get raspberries and blackberries and tomatoes and whatever other plants. You know, we got beautiful blackberry right here. You can just get out of the way. Now you see I interplant. So I got raspberries, tomato. If you look below, I've got this is a pea plant, and then over here is a radish. And if you see the radish plant, it is eaten up badly. I mean, it's really badly eaten up by hornworms. Hornworms apparently love radish plants. I didn't know that when I first started growing radishes. But the reason I grow these radishes around the base of these larger plants is not actually to eat radishes. It's just so pests will eat the radishes instead of focusing their damage on my tomato plants. And then when all of these berries, so the tomato plant and the beans grow up through my blackberries, okay, right? And then I get beans from them. So they intertwine with the blackberries. They want sun, so they grow up past the top of blackberries. And the tomatoes do the same thing. They stretch up above the blackberries. The blackberries are slow growers, right? So they're pretty much done growing for this year. They're not going to grow a whole lot more. And in the fall, they're going to slow down considerably. So when all these berries drop off, right, and they grow up above it, I get tomatoes. And then when my tomatoes are done at the end of the season, I cut them back, and then all fall and early spring, this can grow by itself without having any other plants competing with it. And as long as it's fertilized, I mean, you can see this hedge, right? So you can see that I've got 7, 8, in fact, I would say that some of these are 10-foot tall raspberry vines, right? Pretty easy to say that this is 10 foot tall. It's above my head at the bend right there. It's probably 6.5 feet tall right there. And it's got a few other, you know, a few more feet on it. So, you know, clearly as long as your plants are well fertilized, even if you interplant, the real pain of interplanting is, you know, like the strawberries here, I think it's too much shade because we have, the corn grew up so tall. They were fine all year. They produced a lot of strawberries. The corn grew up, and now they're kind of in this in-between spot where half the day the sun comes from the east, so it's coming from this way. half the day they're shaded by the raspberry plants. The other half of the day they're shaded by the corn plants. So once the sun gets overhead and gets into this position, now they're shaded from this direction. And then you've got this large tree over here that shades them for the evening hours. So the evening hours, they get completely shaded out, right? And even the 12 o'clock sun, which usually the 12 o'clock sun will hit every plant, right? Because it's coming straight from down. Well, you've got this canopy above it. If you're the sun, you're trying to reach these strawberry plants, well, you can't. So I think they just had, you know, a sun issue. I've had them there for 3 seasons. They've never had any problems, but the raspberries have simply grown so well that it's become an issue. And I mean, we're going on a 20-minute video, so we might as well keep going. Here's some raspberries that are down here, and you can see the bug damage, right? When they don't grow, like down here, so they haven't given us any radishes. Excuse me, I said raspberries. Radishes. They haven't given us any radishes, right? Which is fine. I just started growing these. There's one that's actually, it's creating a bulb right now. So sometimes they run and they give you flowers, right? So let's go over here. Excuse me, sorry, it's nasty to spit like that, but I don't want to swallow that phlegm. Anyway, so these are running, this is my compost. These are running radishes. Now all of these that are mature enough will dry out, and in maybe 2 weeks or so I will walk over here and pull thousands of these. In fact, you can see we've got some dry right now, right? So what I do is I come in here, I pull these and split them open, and you've got radish seed for next year, right? So now I've got these great seeds for next year, right? But also you can pull these and eat them while they're green and fresh. So even if they bolt, and I'll show you what inside of a green one, you can see the seeds aren't developed yet. So I mean, they've grown, but they're not dried out. So you can eat this. We have some in the fridge right now, and you see these radishes, they get soft when they go to flower. So what we do, if you see that, I don't know if you can see how soft it is, but they shouldn't be soft like this, spongy. That makes them bad to eat. So, and also, the longer you leave them in the ground, the more likely they're going to get bug damage. So you can see here this hole where worms and stuff have gotten into this radish. And you can see how soft it is. It's just hollow inside. That's not what you want for a good radish. So what we do is, we've done this for the last 3 seasons. So I'll walk you over here. All right, so here are our blueberry plants that we almost lost. They got very sick the first year we got them. They do have some dead I need to cut out of them. So we've got 5 blueberry bushes. They came back. This is great, actually. They almost completely died. They got a disease. It was a type of rust. Apple trees and maple trees get it. So they almost completely died. I put a fungicide on them. They came back. So this year they have produced maybe a handful of blueberries this year. Not much of anything, really. I know this is an alien news or whatever, but so maybe this channel is just going to be me and the things that I like, and not alien news, you know? But anyway, you can see this branch right here has got some like aphids on it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's got a few blueberries, right? They haven't ripened yet, but these bushes, they all have a few. All right, so 10 blueberries for the year. Not great. That's okay. So I interplant, right? So I had all these radishes planted all over here. That's where all those radishes in my compost came from. And if you see here, I've left some. So I've left some growing, just a handful. not many. And I only done that for, well, two main reasons. One, the bug damage. So you can see this thing has just been eaten up. I mean, destroyed by bugs. But it keeps it off of our more valuable plants. The other thing is that they will ripen. All of these seeds will ripen, and then we can cut off the greens if we want to eat the green seed pods, or we can just dry out the seeds and use them for next year. So this entire row, all around these blueberry bushes, are radishes. We let them go to flower, okay? When they go to flower, they bring in so many bees to this area you would not believe. Tons and tons of bees. All the pollinators come in, because if you could imagine, about 5-6 feet tall is just this entire area, maybe 6 feet, 5 feet wide by, I don't know, 20 feet long, almost, 18 feet long. 4-foot tall raspberry bushes, all flowering beautifully. So I come in here and I rip them out. I put them in the compost about June, July. You can actually see some of the radishes that, I didn't do a good enough job pulling out. See some of the old roots, right? You can even see where some of our so this animal netting to protect our blueberries, you can see where some radishes got caught in the netting, and I didn't do a good enough job of pulling it out. But you can also see right here a new raspberry, or a new radish. If you can see that. Here's one, new radish. Here's one, new radish. All of these seeds I just planted. You can see a bunch right there. All of those seeds, if it'll come into focus, will come up and create radishes for us, and we can pickle them in about 6 to 8 weeks. So just at the end of the summer, we will get tons and tons more radishes. This entire area will fill back out. So what I do is I come in, I rip them all out. All right, I rake. You can see some of my rake marks and things like that. I kind of break up the soil a little bit. I replant all my radish seeds, right? And then I fertilize it and I walk away. And I allow this area to grow back up with radishes. But the second, the second batch of radishes are the ones we make for canning and preserving, pickling. And then the first batch are just to bring pollinators in, to protect from other pests that love to eat radishes. And then they make great compost. Not only do they make great compost, we get green radish pods to eat. We get tons of seeds, thousands of seed pods to grow for next year. And then we get all this great mulch that we can use in our garden. And while we're here, you can see a melon plant. This is, I'm not exactly sure if this is a spaghetti squash. This might be a delicata, but we've got a squash plant. We can see a pickle plant intertwined with it. We can see that we've got, our pickles growing. All those pickles inside that I showed earlier today in those jars all came from these plants, and we have them interplanted with squash plants. We've got right here, this is a cantaloupe plant. It might not make it this year, but it's trying. It's doing pretty good. And it's interplanted with, this is a pumpkin. So this is a field pumpkin. In here we have some tomatoes coming up. Over here we have an entire batch of lettuce interplanted. If you can see this, you can see the pumpkin goes straight through here. Not only do we have pumpkin in there, not only do we have lettuce in there, but we have beans as well. I don't know if you can see, but there's your beans right there. The beans climb up these tomato plants. We've already got cherry tomatoes on them. So we love interplanting. Here's another squash right there. That's almost certainly a butternut squash. In fact, we've got many butternut squash. So the only real thing that we had a major failure this year This pumpkin plant has not given us one single opportunity to create a pumpkin, which has driven me kind of mad. So we've gotten lots of flowers, lots of female flowers, but not a lot of pumpkin opportunity for some reason. It just hasn't given us. We've got the male flowers, but we don't have the female yet. We haven't got any. But it's big. You can see how far it's grown. And I assume this one right here, when the time comes, will be the pumpkin. You know, in just a few days I'll come out here and hand pollinate it to guarantee it gets pollinated, because it just hasn't given us the opportunity to grow a pumpkin this year. So, but anyway, we got tomatoes running here. See these heirloom tomatoes? I believe these are purple. These are supposed to be purple. And then we have some, I believe these are Asian pear or something like that. No, these are Cherokee Beauty, I believe. And then we definitely have a hornworm on this plant somewhere. I can see the destruction. So if you see a hornworm, you're probably going to want to take it off your plants and kill it, unfortunately. What we do is we throw them far away. Especially if they have, if I showed you that pollinator earlier, the native pollinator. There's a species of hornet which needs the hornworm to survive. It lays its eggs inside the hornworm, and without the hornworm, in fact, let me just show you, because the other day I found a hornworm. Yeah, look at this. Look at this damage. This is 100% a hornworm that is somewhere over here that needs to be removed. But anyway, yeah, I see some more hornworm damage right there. They're green. They're so green that they blend in really well. But anyway, I want to show you this, right? So these hornworms, look at what they produce. So the wasp, these are wasp eggs, okay? Now, this is not my fault, by the way. So what happened here was a hornworm dropped these wasp eggs onto this plant. I saw it happen. I was coming through here, and the worm fell off the plant onto that plant, and a bunch of those eggs fell off. So what would happen, what's supposed to happen, is these wasp eggs are supposed to hatch, and they eat and they burrow inside, the larvae burrow inside the hornworm. So in this case, for whatever reason, these eggs fell off the hornworm. Right, while I was watching, I was stringing this plant. Right here are the Asian pear tomatoes. But anyway, I was stringing the plant, and we've got some bottom rot here. Make sure you pick this off. If you see it, a lot of times it's watering. Sometimes it could be calcium. So you might want to, there's a tomato brand calcium powder that you can put out here. It has a bunch of different nutrients and stuff. But anyway, I was over here stringing up, I forget what this is called. I think somebody used to call it the Tennessee twist. It's got a name, but everybody seems to call it something different. But we stake our tomatoes and we weave it and we crisscross to hold up the weight of the tomato, right? So anyway, I'm out here and I'm putting in this next line to hold up the tomatoes because they've grown a few inches, and I want to support them so they don't get blown over in the wind. And I saw the worm fall off the plant, hit the leaf, drop a bunch of eggs, and then onto the ground. And I usually toss them in the high weeds somewhere else, so that way the worm can survive and the wasp, which are beneficial, can hatch and have babies. Those hornworms are especially bad on tobacco. I've got some tobacco in here from last year. So now this tobacco was not meant to grow. It is just some seed that fell off a tobacco plant from last year. Now these are young tobacco plants. I have just left them. There's nothing wrong with them. They can grow all they want. They don't hurt anybody. I don't smoke tobacco. I used to, but they're a really fun plant to grow. They're beautiful. I've never seen, let me choose my words. I never expected a plant to be so beautiful. I love tobacco. I love the leaves, how velvety they feel. I like the way it grows. I like the way it smells. I like the flowers that it produces. I like the different pollinators that come in and are flying around the beautiful flowers, or a cone-shaped, elongated flower. I like the pods they produce. I think they're really, really, I don't know why. I don't really care, actually. But for some reason, I saw somebody else growing tobacco, and they're like, oh yeah, grow tobacco and it'll keep hornworms off your tomatoes and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. And then you can always use it as an incense. You know, some people burn it. Just here's some end blossom rot right here, and this little guy. So pop him off and toss him in the corn. Oh, by the way, our corn is doing phenomenally this year. You can see, you know, we've got 10 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot. That one might be, that one right there. It's about 8 inches, 9 inches shy of the top of the roof. You can't really see it that well, but the edge of the roof right there. This one right here, I would argue that plant is going to be a 12-foot plant this year. It's close. But anyway, you can come in here now that these have opened up. You can see, you can pull this off and you can dust all these fibers that are coming out, right? So these little pods will open up, and you can actually see it. If you ever walk through a cornfield, you'll get this pollen all over you. And you can kind of see it break off if you shake. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see it. But every time you do this, there is a bunch of yellow pollen that comes down. And if you plant all your corn in very tight like we have, I mean, this is far too tight, by the way. Like, this is over your recommendation. You know, some of these are 8 inches, some of these are 12 inches, some of these are 6 inches apart from one another. I don't mind when you get some corn that has little baby kernels, because I'm just going to use it for seed for next year. So I don't mind if it's not a full ear of corn. You know, most of them will be. You'll get a bunch that are full ears, and then you'll get a few that are smaller, and they don't give you a full ear of corn. You know, this one you can see is already pollinated. I pollinated this by hand. It's starting to dry off. We're watering this a lot right now to guarantee that they grow as big as we can get them. You know, how much is this? Well, this one's already, you can see it's been pollinated, and now this is, you know, it still has a little ways to go, in my opinion. But, you know, you've got a full ear of corn right there. So even if we don't eat it, what I do is I just dry it out. I hang it, dry it, and use it for seed for next year. And the varieties of corn that I use in here, you can also see my interplanting with the corn. You can see my peas. You can see the tomatoes. Okay, which, by the way, let me find a tomato plant. They do produce. So these are several varieties of cherry tomato that are coming in here. But I interplant. So I've got peas that we've already plucked a bunch of peas from. We got several bowls of peas from just these handful of peas on this row. And then in here, we also plant beans. My beans did really terrible this year. Not just in the corn, but everywhere. I'll show you. So I got, like, peas did great, but beans, you know, I got a few that came up. I got the ones over in the lettuce I showed you, and then I've got these, that's it. And you can see that a bug has eaten half of this bean, is hanging out the bottom of the thing. So anyway, what I do is I just pop this off, and let these dry, and these are my beans for next year. So this even though this bug did some weirdness and ate some of this, I'll just let this dry outside. In fact, that's how this whole conversation started. We were supposed to be talking about strawberries. Here, let's run inside, since this is going to be my video for today, and we're already on 40 minutes. Let's run inside. Oh, here's some peas that I interplanted with the blackberries, you can see. So let's go inside, and I will leave. Oh, while we're here, wash these leaves off from your transplanted basil, okay, and dry them. All right, just wash them off and dry them. I gotta go and turn off the stove. I've got the blackberry jam on the stove right now, and the whole purpose of it being on the stove is we're water bath canning it. So this is done. Turn that off. That actually is overdone. It should have only been in there about 15 minutes or so. So all you're really doing is heating it up, killing off any bacteria that was inside your jam, letting it cool down. You can take these out if you want. Whew. Set them down, allow them to cool, and then once they get down to about room temperature, you could put them in the fridge. You don't want to go straight from boiling hot to really cold, because they will shatter your mason jars. So we did that for the sole purpose of getting the inside hot enough that the lid, inside the lid and inside the glass jar, any bacteria that got in there will die, so that all of these can be stored at room temperature instead of being stored in the fridge. Now, we don't really do that. We always store in the fridge for our jams, but you can. They've got lemon juice in them. They've got high levels of sugar in them. They've been boiled twice. You boiled them essentially when you're making your jam, and then you water bath can them. So technically, you could leave these out. You could put them in a cupboard. We don't. We have enough room in the fridge to put them in there. It's not the end of the world, so we just stack them up and put them in the fridge. But the reason I brought you inside was we have all this basil from transplants. So this gets washed. This is a nice little spinner. You soak them. So you fill the whole plastic bowl up. There's a bowl on the outside. Let them sit in cold water. Right, any of the bugs or anything will come out to the top and try to swim away. You scoop those off if you have any types of ants or bugs or spiders or something. And then once you scoop off the top, right, any bugs you might have, you pull this out and let it drain. You empty the bottom bowl, okay? In fact, this is not the reason I brought people inside, but we're already inside. So we might as well. We're going to turn the stove to the lowest setting. It's approximately 170 on the stove, but this stove tends to be a little bit cool, so it'll probably only get to about 155 or so. And we're going to start. Okay. Empty stove. Always check your stove so you don't destroy your girlfriend's pots and pans. She'll get mad at you. Now, move these pickles out of the way that are now, they're not quite cool enough to put in the fridge, but they're hot still, but they're cooling down. Oh, don't forget to check your lids once you pull them out. Once they cool down a little bit, you want to make sure your lids are tight on all of them. I don't want to touch these. They're definitely too hot, and your lids on your mason jars should click and suck down when they cool, and you can see that all three of these are down. These are down mason jars. This is up, which means if you touch this, I don't want to, here, this one's up higher, see? So that, when it's up, it's got pressure inside. When it cools down, they'll suck the lid down, so you'll get an indent, and then they'll all make that snapping sound, that little crack sound. That lets you know that you've got a good seal on your jars. If you don't have that, you need to either redo it, which you can do in some cases, or you need to get a new lid or a new jar. You could take it out, put it in a new jar, because without that seal, then you're getting air inside whatever you're pickling or Pickles shouldn't be that bad because you got high acid in there, but something like jam, you can get mold growing on jam pretty easily if you have too much air coming in. I've got the jam stuff that I haven't washed yet. I've got a lot of stuff going on. All right, cold water. Fill her on up. Okay, we'll prep our pan. So we're going to use this. Oh boy. All right. So basil. Okay, this isn't that many leaves, so that should be enough. And I can already see one bug. Looks like a bug. Probably a bug. All right. So, I believe that was a bug, wasn't it? Yeah, some type of mite or spider or something like that. But anyway, that's pretty much it. You're just gonna wash them. You can do it again if you want. Just to be extra safe. Rub them together. If you have any caterpillar, chrysalis, or anything like that on the underside, you should be able to feel it with your fingertips. Okay. You could leave these to soak for a little bit. It's not really necessary because you're going to dehydrate these leaves. So, all right, let that drain right there, pour it out. So now you've got your plastic spinner. Okay, put your leaves back in there. Put your spinner on top. These things are great. They're cheap. Just a salad spinner. Pump it. And I think they're like 15, 20 bucks depending on where you get them. But that's it. And then when you do that, it will give you some fairly dry leaves. And you can see how much extra water has come out from those leaves just by spinning them. You can do it again if you want. We're dehydrating these. I don't think it's exactly necessary, but we're going to pour them on our pan. Okay, the little stems are fine. They'll come off. You can pick each one of these leaves if you want. So you could take this stem and pick the leaf off. You don't have to leave the stems in, but I find that when you dehydrate, the stems are really, really easy to separate later on. So I'll just show you. So that's it, and they go in the oven 170 for probably about 2 or 3 hours. Could be less, depends on how wet they are when you put them in there, but when you're done they will come out like this. So these are dried basil leaves from our basil plants. Here's some dried oregano from the oregano plants. Well, actually, I don't think this is our oregano. I don't want to say that. That might not be ours. There's probably our oregano somewhere up here. It doesn't really matter. That might be from the store, but it looks a lot like ours, so it could be ours. It's hard to say. From last year. So anyway, dry out your basil leaves. We put ours in a crusher or a blender, depending on how lazy we are, and we pulverize it. And depending on what we want, sometimes we powder it. Like I powder it down to a very small size once it's dry. My girlfriend tends to crush hers. She tends to put it in a blender and turn it on for a few minutes and turn it into kind of like this. So this is like really kind of coarse dried basil. So you can see it's not powdery. This is how she usually does it. Now I have up here somewhere, let me see, here's dried pepper that I crushed from last year. So this is literally pepper that we dry out from our pepper plants. So we hang them, dry them, and then once they're dehydrated, I pulverize mine into pepper, and you can put this on your tacos or whatever you want to use. I know I have, here's some mini red pepper that's been pulverized. Here's some dried green pepper. We've used almost all of it. I know that there's some powdered basil up here. I don't think it matters. I keep getting sidetracked because I have a lot to do. And I didn't think that I was going to do a 50-minute video about how dirty the house is and how many projects I have hanging everywhere. And what I was going to do, the whole reason I wanted to bring it inside, is to grab these. You see how disjointed you get when you're running off of coffee and you're sick and you've got a bunch of things that you have to do. There's a wasp looking for a sweet flower. So anyway, this whole video is supposed to be about propagating basil. I hope you have learned how to do that, because if not, I have failed. Earlier we came over here. We talked about these blackberries, right? I didn't show you these raspberries right here that are dried. So these have been, hurt or something. And I just smash them a little bit, allow them to dry out. And once they are completely dry, I put them in a bag, just like this. Okay, now this happens to be strawberries, not raspberries. But over here, there's a beautiful butterfly. If you want to get sidetracked with me, you can see that there's a beautiful raspberry cluster that is ready. And there should have been, strawberries. So, and it's ready. All right, so you can do this one of two ways. What I do is I just sit them out in the sun, or sometimes ants get to them, they eat the flesh, but they leave the seeds. Usually in the middle of the summer, they will dry out within 3 days, 2 or 3 days, so fast. And what they turn into when you're trying to preserve strawberries, they turn into this. As you can see in my strawberry seed bag, that's what they turn into. Okay. Now when they dry out like this, they've got seeds all over the outside, and those seeds want to fall off. So what I do is I come over a tray, I put all my dirt in, and then I just do this. And you can see all the seeds break off the outside. Now I just added a few more seeds this morning because we've got some growth in some of these trays, but then none in others. So I came back and reseeded these this morning, and I don't really want to waste more seeds. I guess I could. I've got thousands of them, why not? So I just do this. This is how I propagate seeds. And then in, a few weeks, they'll start popping up. And so that's how I do strawberry seeds. And then if you get a few in the same one like this, you can take a spoon, a little teaspoon, and scoop it out and move it, transplant it. Same thing with these. I'll separate these so that way they're not competing with each other. And by the end of the summer, they should all be big enough. Every strawberry in these flats should be big enough to bring inside, put under a grow light, and survive just fine by themselves over the winter. And I just do that for the first year. So that way, next spring, they're really, really strong. You don't have to do that. Where we are, my strawberries that are already outside, once they're outside, they survive the winter just fine. In fact, last year was the best winter we had for strawberries. So not only did they do great, but they didn't die back. Normally, the leaves will turn brown like this, and you put a little bit of mulch over them to protect the roots and stuff. But normally they all die off like this at the end of the year, in the January, February time frame. This year we didn't have die off like this. They all stayed green all year because we just had a really mild winter. And not only did we have a mild winter, but they came up early. So we had tons and tons of strawberries by March. Like the middle of March, which was completely abnormal. Normally, it wouldn't be until June, almost now, like maybe the early June, we would get our first strawberries. We got tons of them this year. That's why we made the jam. Oh, shit. Okay, so I had a... Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. Yeah, so I had a wasp land on me. Whatever. Anyway, I got a lot of stuff to do. As you can see how disjointed I am. I'm sweating really hard. I'm pretty sick still, although I am feeling better. I'm going to get to it. That's pretty much it. I've got some rosemary we can dry. I've got some things we can talk about in the garden, like pepper plants interplanted with, with basil and sweet potatoes and onions, interplanted with tomatoes. And, we could always talk about those sorts of things in the future. But anyway, I think that's enough for today. I don't know if I'll get to anything else later on about aliens or UFOs or anything like that. Let's take a quick gander at the sky. Make sure nothing weird's happening. Nope. Everything looks blue. And I guess that's it for us. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.